Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Sarcasm Speaks, Jared and Bob here. Game one of a doubleheader for us because Mr. Roberto over here needs to work. He's got a job.
Say someone has to around here.
Yeah, someone's got to work. Um, so out of the gate here, I wanted to make sure we got to this in game one, right? Because it's a little bit more time pertinent, I suppose. George Foreman died. So we got a loser lap there on the death pool. Um, he was 76 years old, which, you know, that's right about average, right? What is I think the average for males in the United States is like 77.2, and I think females is like 78.1, something like that, the average lifespan. Um, Oddly enough, I don't think any of us have ever had George Foreman. Now, to be fair, right? I mean, if we started doing this, fuck, 6 years ago, um, he would have been 70 then. So I mean, that is a little bit early. But yeah, I mean, he was a boxer, right? Boxers typically don't live too long after they get their heads bashed in for a while. But
I thought that a little while ago because I think he was a big vaccine guy.
ah,
So someone was like, well, see what happens? And they were like, dude, he was 76 with comorbidities and he got punched in the head for a living.
yeah, for like
I'd say
3 decades,
76 is probably pretty good.
he got punched in the head for 3 decades. Like that's not ideal. So. Um, yeah, made a hell of a grill though.
Yeah, I was never a fan.
The lean, mean, fat grilling machine. I did have one in college, when I lived on South Street, when I lived in that like random apartment behind the law firm, right there at the end of, was that 104 or 106, whatever road that was. I had one of them then, um, because obviously I didn't have a grill, but
I mean, my parents had one. I never really liked it.
yeah, my mother had one, I think, when we were growing up too. Um, she's kind of like whatever. I mean, it's fine. It's like a fucking panini press. That's all, literally all it is a
Yeah,
panini
pretty
press.
much. It's pretty much all it is.
So, except at the bottom of the press, right? The bottom half is at
Elevated.
yeah, it's at like a 45-degree angle. So all the juices drip down into a tray, right? Like it's kind of is what it is, right? So, yeah, shout out to George Foreman. We missed him. So, the other thing that we talked about in a most recent episode was the JFK file release. Um, so I have not read any of it on my own. Shout out to Finn. He called me earlier today. I talked to him for a little while. We were talking a little bit about JFK, and he is actually going through reading the documents. And I know I had said I was going to do that, and then I found out there were 80,000 pages, and I was like, yeah, it's not worth it. Right? Because like if I sat down and read 40 pages out of the 80,000, what's the fucking point? Right? Like, I don't know. The way I look at it is like, if I am going to sit down and actually read through the real documents, or not, obviously not the real, but like the digitized real documents, you would read all of them. Right. And I thought they would be like, maybe seven, 800, maybe 1,500 pages, 80,000 pages, way too much for me. I'll just wait for other people to read it and tell me what they read. Um, So one of the things I did find out was there are 80,000 pages to this, but not all of it is new information. So basically what I found out, and I don't know the percentage, I don't know like the absolute numbers or anything like that. Whoa. Um, but a certain amount of them were already released. They were just heavily redacted. So when they say released 80,000 pages, again, I'm making numbers up because I don't know them. Maybe 60,000 of them had already been released previously. They just had heavy redactions, and now they're re-released without any redaction. So you can actually read what's going on. Um, so, I mean, take that what you will, I suppose. But the cliff notes of what I've gotten from a bunch of different people who have gone through it and, over the last week and a half or so, um, is that the CIA killed Kennedy. Um, they don't really know still what happened with Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby. But the CIA was tracking them both for like 7 years prior to the assassination.
So I
And
hate to be this guy,
yeah,
but I think what's going to end up happening a little bit. I don't think this is just my understanding. I didn't read it. I've never even considered reading a page. But it sounds like a lot of people are just drawing their own conclusions that the CIA did it, right? Is that a fair, or have you heard otherwise that it explicitly says,
yeah, well, that's the other thing too. Like we all have to be realistic about this. No one at the CIA in 1963 wrote down on a piece of paper, here's the plan to kill Kennedy, right? It's not like Operation fucking kill POTUS, right? Like that doesn't exist. So like if that's what you're looking for, you're not going to find it.
right? So this is the thing. I'm not looking for anything, um, but I think this is like part of the stupidity that you're gonna get is most people's comprehension, or it sounds like most people's comprehension is that, hey, the CIA was behind this. But again, you have to draw your own conclusions. So it's like you're gonna hear sides of this where people don't believe it or choose not to believe it or whatever, and they're gonna come up with even more theory. Like again, it's just gonna be more and more theories.
Yeah. So the CIA was certainly involved, right? That we know for a fact. We know for a fact that the CIA was involved because the CIA has documentation for 7 years on both Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby, right? They also have motive, right, with the Bay of Pigs. So obviously, for anyone out there that doesn't know, if you were under a rock, you didn't go through U.S. history. I think it was in 1961 or 1962, maybe. The CIA ran a failed coup attempt in Cuba to overthrow Fidel Castro at the Bay of Pigs. They tried to incite a bunch of local Cubans, and obviously the CIA funded it and was behind it. It didn't work. Um, so the Cuban government was able to quash the rebellion, the attempted coup. They threw a bunch of people in jail. A lot of people died, um, and it was a real gross stain on U.S. foreign policy for a really long time, um, for decades, really. So, come to find out, President Kennedy told the CIA to not you go forward with the attempted coup, right? It made its way to him, and he said, "No, I'm not authorizing that." Well, CIA went ahead and did it anyway. Um, or at least that's what I've heard. I might be getting that mixed up. Maybe he did authorize it, but after he was coerced almost in a way. But who knows? Whatever. That part of it's not important. The part that's important is it happened, right? It happened under Kennedy presidency. Kennedy was pissed because he wasn't a fan of it, right? If he did give his final stamp on it, he did so begrudgingly. And as a result, he fired everyone at the CIA at the top, right? fired, forced resignation, retirement, however you want to call it. He forced them out. So Alan Dulles, who was the head of the CIA, uh, basically the guy that created it almost, he was forced to resign in disgrace, and the second in command, I forget the guy's name, but the deputy director of the CIA was also forced to resign after the Bay of Pigs. Well, this is where things get a little squirrely also because all of that happens, right? It's a stain. JFK is on record, right? Like you can actually find the tape where he says he wants to scatter the CIA into the wind, right? He wanted to completely dismantle and disband the Central Intelligence Agency, abolish it, get rid of it, fuck them, no more, right? So they do that. He fires everyone. The deputy director of the CIA at the time, again, I forget his name, it's not important. His brother was the mayor of Dallas. The morning of the parade on November 23rd, 1963, or 22nd, whatever day it was, the morning of the parade in Dallas, the mayor comes up to, the Secret Service, motorcade, whatever, for the parade and goes, hey guys, we have to change the parade route. We're going to change the route that you guys are going to drive. And then his car drove through Dealey Plaza, right by the book depository where Lee Harvey Oswald was, and obviously the rest is history. So again, there's no piece of paper there that says, the deputy director of the CIA ordered his brother to change the parade route to fix this thing because this is what the CIA had planned. Um, but if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably not an elephant.
Does it weigh as much of a duck or as much as a duck?
I don't know. Then it might be a witch.
And it's a witch.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you have all of these weird things, right? It's the same thing with the Epstein conspiracy, right? Where is it possible for one of these things in a vacuum to exist? Yeah, absolutely, right? Like the guy who was forced to resign from the CIA as the deputy director, his brother is the mayor of Dallas, which just so happens to be where Kennedy was assassinated. Yeah, chalk that one up to a coincidence, right? But he also is the one that changed the parade route. There was also the magic bullet theory, right? There was also the alleged only one shooter. Maybe there was two. Some people thought they heard multiple shots. Then a bunch of witnesses who were there in Dealey Plaza just magically died, right? Like, again, it comes to the Epstein thing. Like, does someone hang themselves in their prison cell? Yeah, it happens relatively frequently, right? People hang themselves in jail. Do the cameras go out in the jails? Yeah, occasionally it happens, right? Do the prison guards fall asleep on a night shift? Yeah, it happens. But you're telling me on the same night that this guy who everyone wanted dead, he decided to hang himself while the cameras were out and the prison guards were asleep, right? And all of them just happened to line up. I don't know if I believe that, right? It's the same thing as the Kennedy thing. Like there's too many things that would have to be in alignment for it to be a pure coincidence. So I don't believe it, right? And now I don't have to because there's enough evidence that links the CIA to all of this. Um, Again, they were tracking Oswald, they were tracking Ruby. There was the motive, right, in the whole aftermath of the Bay of Pigs. Kennedy said he wanted to dismantle the CIA. Um, One of the other things that I think is interesting was in this release, there was a guy named Gary Underhill. So Gary Underhill was a CIA. He was either a CIA asset or he worked in the agency himself, right? So he was either an agent or an asset. Somehow he was involved in the CIA. Like 2, 3 years after Kennedy was assassinated, um, he shows up to like a bunch of his friends, right? There's like a party somewhere. Gary Underhill shows up. He starts telling his friends that the CIA killed Kennedy. He said they did it. He goes, the CIA killed Kennedy. I'm in trouble, right? They're gonna come for me. So Gary is all freaked out. He tells all of his buddies that he knows the CIA was behind Kennedy's assassination. And then a couple weeks later, or maybe like a couple months later or whatever, they find Gary dead of a single gunshot wound behind his left ear. So why is that significant? Well, again, just hearing that off the surface, again, I'm not smart enough to know that that's suspicious, but other people have looked into it, right? Gary Underhill was right-handed, and typically when people commit suicide by gun, right, they either put the gun in their mouth and pull the trigger, or point it at their chest and pull the trigger, right? Like Junior Seau did. All like typically you again, or you put the gun to the side of your head, right at your temple, right? So it's temple, mouth, chest. Those are like 99% of all of the suicide by gun modalities. So they're saying that Gary committed suicide by a single gunshot wound behind his left ear. So people are like, why would you take a gun to the back of your own head on the other side, right? If you're right-handed. So if you're right-handed dominant, right, you're either gonna, what are you gonna do? Like hold it upside down behind you on the right side, or like cross over the back if you keep it in your right hand, or you're gonna hold it in your left hand. Like that doesn't seem to make sense. So everyone's like, that doesn't make any sense. And the medical examiner ruled it a suicide. Nothing to see here. He killed himself. So they were talking about that on the Drinking Bros, and Dan Holloway goes, he might have been the first Epstein, the first he didn't actually kill himself.
So was that in the release, or
Yes.
was that
Yeah, that's in the release.
or was that known because that story was published in like 1976 or something?
No, that was part of the documents that were released. Because I don't think we knew his name. I don't like for some reason like everyone was freaking out about, Gary Underhill, whatever. So there's some other information that came out too that links Israeli intelligence to the assassination as well. Um, I think Dan Holloway had a great breakdown of this, where he basically said it's the CIA. It's not the Jews, right? It's not Israeli intelligence that's like doing all this. No, it's the CIA, right? And they're able to pawn it off on these other intelligence agencies. And I brought this up with Finn too, because he mentioned like, it's so many people wanted Kennedy dead, right? Was it the mafia? Was it the CIA? Was it the Federal Reserve, right? Because he said he wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Abraham Lincoln was the last president before him that said that, and we all know how that worked out too. Pretty similar, actually. So there were all of these different like factions that wanted Kennedy dead, and I look at that and I go, that's the perfect cover, right? If you're the CIA, that's the perfect cover to kill the president, right? Because for years and years and decades, everyone will just argue, nah, I think it was the mob. I don't know. I think it was the CIA. Well, I think maybe it was Mossad. Or no, I think maybe it was the Federal Reserve. They'll never be able to pin it on you, right? So I am moving forward pretty well that the CIA was behind it. Like I said, there was mention of Israeli intelligence in there, but I think a lot of that was just kind of showing that the CIA has a lot of assets all over the world, right? They were I think Dulles, there was some information in the report that it was found out that Dulles was running like a clandestine offshoot of the CIA even after he was forced to resign as director after the Bay of Pigs. Like he was still involved. Like, he's making phone calls in
Vegas
back
agency.
alleys. Yeah, yeah, he created the Figgis agency. Um, but no, I mean it's all kind of fascinating stuff that people are starting to talk about. But I mean, you have it basically 98%, right? That it was the CIA.
The whole thing, from again from an outsider, the whole thing feels very underwhelming because I feel as though we've learned nothing new. And I don't know, maybe that's expectation management. And I know everyone's gonna be like, well, now you have the proof. Yeah, that's fine. But like, I actually kind of thought we would get something out of it.
Yeah, I mean,
And
maybe people
well,
haven't
and
gone through all 80,000 pages yet, too, right? Maybe there's some more stuff.
maybe there's just nothing there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing, too, like I said, no one wrote down on a piece of paper like Operation Kill POTUS.
I was just thinking there'd be more. Yeah, no, it was like, truthfully, like deep down, I was kind of just hoping that like everyone's like stupid ass conspiracy theories. I was kind of hoping there was more to it, and then in reality, it's like there just kind of isn't. Like this is like this is like the Bears are who we thought they were. That's it. It's like
Yeah,
everything that everybody already thought. Yeah, it's being confirmed, but again, we're not getting information. Like they're even like even the reports and whatever people are saying, because I've seen a couple like summaries. Lee Harvey Oswald was alone. That's it. Like magic bullet, nothing. Like nothing. So hopefully people get through more pages and maybe there's something, but I don't know. Like that's I'm also kind of thinking like deep down they didn't investigate it the way that they needed to. So like releasing the reports is still missing information, you know what I mean?
I think that's the other part of it, too, right? We've talked about that um, a bunch of times before about how the Kennedy assassination is linked to the Nixon resignation, right? Like, who was the head of the Warren Commission? Gerald Ford, right? What happens to Richard Nixon when he starts running his mouth and saying he's going to do all these bombastic things, right? He gets a little bit too popular. Well, they pinch his vice president for tax evasion, right? They get rid of Spiro Agnew, and then they pull up Nixon for Watergate, right? He gets impeached, he resigns, and who do they replace him with? Gerald Ford, right? The guy that was the head of the Warren Commission, who oversaw the quote unquote, we'll look into the Kennedy thing, right? So they didn't, I mean, I think that's a good point that you just brought up. They didn't look very deeply into it, right? And who was the guy that oversaw it? The guy that was placed as president, whatever, 15 years later.
I also saw a guy. I can't remember all the details because I just don't give a fuck enough. But I did see there are some more. There's more connections between Watergate and the assassination than just Gerald Ford, and like there's some actual people like behind the scenes that were involved in both.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it came out that Bob Woodruff was a intelligence asset, like the quote unquote journalist that broke the story of Watergate. I think Watergate was like the first story he ever wrote. And prior to that, he was in the Navy and he was tied to intelligence agencies. But
It's just good talent.
he becomes a journalist, and then his first story is Watergate.
Nothing to see there.
Yeah, total coincidence. Just another one, just another coincidence, right? It's weird how life is just full of these crazy coincidences.
Yeah, that's my I guess just to like put a bow on that. That's my only like kind of concern is again, I feel very underwhelmed by the release and I don't think we get any closure. I don't think we get any conspiracy theories that go away. I just think we actually gain nothing. That's my only fear is you've actually gained nothing
Yeah.
with the release.
Yeah.
'Cause I
Yep.
think I feel like if there was anything there by now we'd hear about it. That's like I know no one's probably gone through all 80,000 pages, but there's got to be a syndicate of people who collectively have gone through all
Yeah.
80,000 pages by now.
Yeah, I would imagine. So, yeah. Speaking of politicians, I had this come up a couple weeks ago. So I think once or twice a month, this guy that I work with holds these just like impromptu meetings. So the guy happens to be, oh Christ, this is going to be like my Barry's cousin Larry, cousin's Gary. Um, my boss's boss, right? So he's three levels above. He's two Kevin Bacons away from the CEO, right? It's this guy, then he reports directly to the CFO of the company, who then obviously reports to the CEO. So so he's the big boss of where I'm at. And like once or twice a month, like I said, he holds these like informal, impromptu meetings, and all of the underlings like myself sit in a room. There's usually like five, six, seven people, and it's on a rotating basis throughout the year. So I had my first one a couple weeks ago, and he was kind of like just talking a little bit about the company and how he got involved with some of the state politics in Rhode Island when they were building out buildings and things like that. So he knows people here and there, and as a result, he kind of has been defaulted as the guy that kind of like deals with politicians and gets involved with politics for the company just because he knows everyone. So he was telling that story, and I asked him like, do you find yourself a lot like dealing a lot with different types of politicians? Like, do you notice, like, are you able to kind of tell who's for real and who's full of shit? And he goes, oh yeah, absolutely. So I thought this was interesting coming from someone who is pretty candid, right? Again, there's only like five, six, seven people in the room. He starts every meeting by saying, like, nothing is off limits. He goes, you can ask me whatever you want. He goes, I don't care. So he's just like telling these stories, doing whatever. And he goes, yeah, let me tell you a story about one time something that happened. So he goes to the state, um, whatever, the state house, right? So they're trying to do something with the company, and there's a woman, right, who's part of the state house. I think she's maybe a state representative. Yeah, and this is all state level. It's not federal level, so it's uh, state politics. So she's a representative. She gets up and she absolutely shreds this guy and our company, right? The whole corporate greed, this and that, like it's bad for the people. You don't care about the little guy, all that's right, yada yada. As if like this guy, this one guy is who's again, I mean, he's two Kevin Bacons away from the CEO, but it's not like he makes $12 million a year, right? Like a CEO would. Um, so he tells the story, right? This woman goes, yeah, whatever. She shreds him after the thing, right? He goes and talks to her because he's like, I'm kind of like, she's being pretty hostile. Like I kind of just want to talk to her and see like what's going on. Like, why do you not like me? Type of deal. So he goes up and he goes, she was extremely nice. She goes, she was a wonderful, wonderful woman. He goes, I went and I think he said he met her for lunch the next day. And she goes, she apologized. She was like, I'm really sorry for the way I acted yesterday in the chamber. Um, but if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I needed to get another bill passed in the House for something else that like I really want to get done. And the chairman of that committee that's involved with the bill I'm trying to pass was also part of that meeting. So I needed to do that to look good for this guy that's the chairman of this other committee so that when I bring up my bill to vote, he'll vote in favor of me. And the guy's like, "What?" He's just like, what the fuck? So he goes, okay, but like, other than that, like, what's going on? And like, they shoot the shit, whatever, and he leaves the lunch or whatever, and he goes, she's actually kind of a nice woman, right? Like, we got along great. But he goes, that's politics. He goes, she wasn't mad at me. She wasn't mad at our company. She was putting on a show because she needed something done, a week or two from now. And there was a guy that could help her get it done. And he was also in the meeting. So she needed to look good to him so that he would trust her to get her. You know what I mean? Like it's this cascade of everything. And he goes, it's a fucking mess. And I go, yeah, that sounds awful. So then my follow-up question to him was, is that everybody? I go, is that everyone? And he goes, no. So he goes, in his words, again, I'm paraphrasing, but he goes, I have interactions like that, and it makes me hate politicians, right? And it makes me think that they're all slimy, no good, they don't care about actually anything other than themselves. And he goes, then I talk to some politicians and they actually do care, right? They actually do want to make a difference. And he goes, they kind of restore my faith temporarily until I run into the next shitty one. Um, so he did say, I don't know who the actual person is. I don't know what his first name is, but Senator Reed, who I think is actually a federal senator, not a state senator, or a state senator for the federal government, right? He's federal government representation. Um, in Rhode Island. He's one of the senators. He said that he is genuinely a good guy who cares about the people. Um, he wouldn't get into, I couldn't get him to give up names of like who the shitbags were and who like whatever. He was like, I mean, he goes, we don't need to go down that deep. Um, but he did say that whoever Senator Reed is from Rhode Island, Jack Reed, I just looked him up on Wikipedia. Jack Reed, from Rhode Island. Shout out to him because, again, according to my source, he's a genuinely good guy who cares about the people.
Can't be that good. He's a politician.
That's true too, by definition. So, but yeah, I mean, that's another one though too, right? You want to talk about like we always kind of knew it, but now we have the actual confirmation. Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I guess this episode is just all about the underwhelming information, I guess.
yeah,
Like I'm not even like I wasn't even remotely changed by that info. That's all politics is. It's all a show. Even the
yeah,
ones is it the guy Massey?
yeah,
He who always like flips out about how much of a waste of time all this is.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That's a performance too.
yeah.
So even though
Oh,
I agree with a lot of what he has to say, it's a performance.
right, right. So
The same
that's
way that AOC is a performance
yes.
and Elizabeth Warren is a performance.
So that's what
The ones
this
that are so cool because they don't give a fuck, that's a performance too.
so that's another thing that he said when we were on politics was all of this is a performance, yes, and he goes it's all to raise money, right? And someone else asked a question like what do you mean? Like can you explain like what do you mean by that? And he goes, "Okay, so, I mean, he started the whole discussion being saying that like he was a lifelong Republican until Donald Trump, and now he doesn't like anybody, right? He's like, I go, I mean, that makes sense, right? He was just kind of down the middle, right? He hates all politicians in a way. So he goes, it's all fake. So he goes, you take someone like AOC, right? She's in the news. She freaks out. She does this whole thing. He actually mentioned AOC and Elizabeth Warren. And he goes, you get both of them. They're crazy. They do all this. They're in the news, right? And he goes, what happens the next day? You start to see their donations are increasing because they're in the news. Now they're more likely to raise money, right? So they send out their campaigns like, oh, did you like what you saw on the news the other day? Send us $5, right? Send us $10. Donate what you can. Help the cause, right? Help the cause. He goes, just as much as they do that, then you have someone on the other side like a Marjorie Taylor Greene. And he goes, you see Marjorie Taylor Greene do something crazy, stupid. She's all over the news. She's like yelling in Congress, like calling people names. And what happens the next day? She's out fundraising, right? And then he mentioned the Crockett lady was another one that he mentioned. I don't know where she's from. Missouri, Alabama, I don't know. But he goes, you see her, she's in the news, she's running her mouth. What happens the next day? She's out raising money, right? So he goes, it's all fake. Anytime you see a politician in the news like that, the very next day, they're out asking for people's money. And because they've been in the news, they're in the headlines, they're more, that's the most likely time to raise the most money, right? If you want to use a cliche and say strike while the iron is hot, right? Like while those politicians are in the news because of something that they said or something that they're doing on TV, the iron is hot, right? And that's when they're starting to ask people for donations. And I was like, wow, that's a really interesting thing. Like it makes a lot of sense, obviously, right? It's one of those things like you hear him explain that and you go, oh, yeah, obviously. Yeah, that makes sense. But it's like not one of those things that like I would think of on my own. But when someone says it, you're like, oh, yeah, of course. That makes a ton of sense.
It's because I don't know. I mean, again, a psychologist could probably dive deep into it, but it's like I don't trust what any of these people have to say, whether they're a politician, an actor, really anything.
Yeah.
Anytime someone's forward facing, right?
Yeah.
And it's even like, yeah, I'll call names because it doesn't really matter. So like 10 years ago, I went to TPI and one of the instructors was Jason Glass on the fitness side. And it was like a month after he did like the Burn Your Benches podcast or whatever, where it's like he goes, "Oh yeah, no, there's no need for anybody, any golfer to ever do anything laying on their back because golf is played on your feet and it's more functional to do this." So then it's like, the idea of like, "Oh, burn your bench" is like stuck. And we saw him, and there was like a social at the hotel. I was with fucking Cunty Chris, and like, dude, you look at the guy. It's like obviously you bench press,
Yeah.
but like all this big thing, like, "Oh, burn your bench," you don't need it.
Yeah.
So it's like we're having a beer or whatever. He comes over. I go, "There's no way." I go, "Don't stand here and tell me you don't bench." He goes, "Obviously I bench." He's like, and I'm like, dude, I get the premise. Don't worry. He goes, "Yeah, I know." He's like, "It's a little extreme, whatever." And I'm like, all of it is a performance. Boyle is a performance.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's one guy I was like learning from a little bit, and it's like, his big thing is, you know, he runs his programs. It's all about like speed. It's speed and speed only, and you don't do more and you don't do less, and your football team doesn't condition whatever. And I'm like, yes, there's merit to everything. There's always merit to everything that everybody says. Like Massey not giving a fuck, AOC being a fucking lunatic, Bernie like doing whatever the fuck Bernie does.
Yeah.
There is some merit to it, but all of this is a fucking joke
Yeah.
in the way that it's handled. And then the way that, especially in politics, the way that people talk as if anyone gives a flying fuck about what they do or they're going to do something,
Yeah.
it's even more stupid. And like I was talking to a guy at the gym and he's on the right side, big Trump guy. And actually I don't think he loves Trump the candidate, but I think he probably really likes what he stands for and how he does what he says most of the time, which
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of people.
I think that's fading at this point. Um, because he said he was going to do a lot of things and it ain't happening.
Right.
But
Right.
and I've even said before too, I'm like, well, generally he's done everything he said. It's only been 2 full months since inauguration day. Is
Right.
that 60 days? So he's got like another 40 to like really hit that 100-day bullshit,
Mm.
whatever the fuck
Yeah.
people give a
Yeah.
flying shit about. Um, but he was just like, this, that, I'm like, they're all idiots. They're all absolute cunts.
Yeah.
I go, just play the game the right way. Well, no, this person is that. And I'm like, you gotta stop. This is why they continue to do it.
Right. Right. They just suck you
This
back
is
in.
why.
Yeah.
Like the best thing, like this is like the only way that you could ever hit a politic. Like if you had actual like influence, whatever, and it's like, oh hey, this is Elizabeth Warren. Oh, who's that? It would fucking drive them crazy.
Oh yeah.
The idea that someone like wouldn't know who they were or wouldn't know what they are, what they stand for, like any of that. That's the shit that would drive them crazy. That's how you fucking get to politicians.
Yeah.
You
That's
you hurt
hilarious.
their ego somehow.
Yeah. They're like, oh, I'm not familiar with your work.
Yeah. Like imagine being like, someone in Massachusetts and then it's like Ed Mark. It's like, oh, this is Ed Markey. Oh, hi.
Hi, what do you do?
Yeah, and okay, cool. Like what do you call it? Like, yeah. What are you involved in? Oh, well, actually I've, been a senator or rep for like a million years. Oh, that's interesting. I thought I would have heard of you.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to go about it. That would be fantastic.
No, again, I'll never have to deal with that, obviously.
Right, right.
But anyone that it's anyone that really, really wants to be like known or feel important, whatever, the way you make them feel the least important is to pretend as if like you have no clue who they are. Now, luckily for me, if I ever had to meet any of these people, I genuinely don't know who they are.
Yeah, true. It's not like you have to put on an act.
I don't have to do any performing. I'm this fucking stupid all the time.
True, true. So, uh, on that note, you want to wrap up game one here?
We can wrap this up.
All right.
Um, So I had to go for an eye exam because I was going to need new contacts. I think I have to order them on Monday, whatever. So I got an eye exam October 2023. So I know how insurance works, and they only cover one eye exam every other year. So usually it's like you go in 2023, insurance covered that. 2024, you owe. And I'm like, well, I don't really owe. I don't want to pay. I'm gonna
Right.
play the game. And again, my eyes aren't even that bad. Like my prescription till now was minus 0.25 or whatever. Yeah, I think they're gonna be zero point 0.5. I don't know what the fuck it is. It doesn't matter. It's like Michaela says I have fake contacts, but um so I also was intending to switch eye doctors, but then like one of the ones here locally was like, yeah, we're booking in July. I go, well, that's not gonna work.
Yeah,
I go, I
no
didn't realize eye
thanks.
doctors were like that. But anyway, so go back to the old one, book an appointment. It's 2025. And I get a text and it's like, yeah, hey, we just checked in with your insurance and they're not going to cover an eye exam until after October 17th,
Oh,
2025. And I'm
Jesus
like, you
fucking
fucking
Christ.
assholes. I go, you fucking dickheads. Like, you have
Yeah,
it down to the day. Now I get why. It's for me. It's for the exact thing I tried pulling.
right.
Like they know that someone could just get a year supply of contacts right before their exam date,
Right.
skip the next year, and then get an exam in 2025, and then they're always covered, even though it's only been 18 months since
Right.
or whatever, 16 months since my last exam. So it's like, yes, I was trying to play the game, but I'm like, fuck you guys. I go, not for nothing. Eye prescriptions are only a year. So why do you
Yeah.
guys only cover every other year? Like, what kind of bullshit is that?
Yeah.
And
That's
it's like, obviously, I hate the insurance companies, and it's like, I know that. So it's like, I got twofold. One, fuck them. Like,
yeah, insurance companies
to be
suck.
that detail oriented to not pay out things.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, like seriously, what does the insurance company give a fuck if it's March of 2025 or October of 2025? It's the same year.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And if
have
it's like, oh, well,
no
it could be a
idea.
fiscal year, it's like, yeah, but it doesn't, that's not the fiscal year thing.
Right.
So
And
I'm like,
fiscal
yeah,
years are
okay.
goofy because it's up to the company,
Yeah, it could be anything.
right? Yeah.
And so like I'm aware, like I was trying to play the game and they caught me, but I'm like, you know what? What a fucking racket. I go, you know what? They really just shouldn't even cover any eye exams. Like what why every other? Like what
Yeah,
the
that's
hell is
dumb.
that?
My insurance covers every year.
Well, I don't have like a dedicated vision plan.
Oh, yeah,
Mine's just
yeah.
health.
I do.
Well, yeah, because then here we go again. Like my eyes, for all intents and purposes, are fine.
Right.
I have a very niche need for these things.
Right.
Um, so like, yeah, I mean, if I had more things going on, like I could certainly get a vision plan. But then it's like, you know what? For as much as a vision plan costs, I may as well just pay for the one exam and then get the second one free and then just keep rotating that
Right. Or you can just
play.
order more contacts before that prescription expires.
So that's the thing though, I'm gonna have to cover a very long time
Yeah.
because you need to cover 2 calendar years.
Yeah, but if you got,
So I'm sorry, I would have to get the year supply leading into the expiration. So my prescription is going to expire in March of 2026. So like
yeah, so
3 weeks.
you got a year supply now, right? For this
I
year.
mean, I'm gonna buy. I haven't bought mine yet, but I'm gonna
But for
buy.
effect, like argument's sake, you're buy a year supply right now, right?
I could buy a year supply right now.
So the year supply right now will take you through, you know, March 25th of 2026. So on March 15th of 2026,
I
just
would
buy
have to get another year
another year
supply
supply. And
if I really want to play the game.
that'll carry you through 2027.
Yes, that is how to actually play the game.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Usually, I just don't want to buy a year supply. I just usually don't want to pay that much. So
Yeah.
yes, I am trying to have it all of the ways. I do understand that. But so yeah, they caught me playing the game. But then I'm like, when you really think about it, it's like fuck you,
Yeah.
fucking
Insurance companies
dickheads.
suck. Contacts suck. Eye doctors suck. It's all
I
annoying.
mean, actually, I mean, mine are fine. And then it's like
Yeah.
obviously there's like a surcharge for contacts. I'm like, good God, you fucking assholes.
Oh yeah, on a visit. Like if you go for a visit, a normal eye exam is, whatever X amount. They charge you more if it's for contacts.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, you need contacts too? Well, it's going to be an extra $40.
I get it. Like
Okay.
some type of correction is a necessity, but you could just have glasses. Contacts are a luxury. You have to pay for it. I get it. But at the same time, I'm just like, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's dumb. So, my final thought will be a quick one. I'll stick with the politics theme here. Um, Kane, yes, Kane from WWE, uh, currently known as Glenn Jacobs, who is like the mayor of some county in Tennessee, in Knoxville, maybe Knoxville County, um, challenged Tim Walz to a fight. for charity. So like he legitimately wants to fight him. Right? We talked about that. I think that was the last episode, right? Where Tim Walz was like, "Oh yeah, Trump supporters, I could beat them all up, or I could do all that." So we had Dan Holloway challenge him officially under Texas Penal Code to one-on-one combat, right? Hand to hand, one-on-one. Um, Now we have Kane, right? Who is 7 feet tall, 350 pounds. Um, Go, yeah, let's fight. Let's fight. And he goes, let's do it for charity. He goes, I'll split the purse with you 50-50 to both of our selected charities. He goes, we'll sell tickets, we'll do it up, but we'll fight. Crickets. Hasn't been any response. Which, I mean, to be fair, I don't know very many people that would want to. I mean, I know Kane's probably like in his 50s at this point, if not, 60s, but still 7 feet tall. Maybe now he's closer to like 300, 320, maybe 290, but still 7 feet tall, about 300 pounds. Yeah, I don't know very many people that want to mess with that.
No, again, just another dickhead running his mouth.
Yeah, but it is funny that, Walls is out there running his mouth being like, oh, yeah, no, I could beat up all the Trump supporters. And all these guys are like, okay, then let's fight.
I think we're gonna find out that that dude was a throwaway candidate that
Oh,
no one
yeah.
really heard of before.
Yeah.
And I think he was inserted not to waste a good candidate.
Well, now there's rumors that he wants to run for president in 2028.
Go ahead.
Yeah. He won't
You're
make it
not
through
gonna
the
get anywhere.
primary. He won't make it through the primary.
Yeah. Go nuts.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's going to do it here. So, thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe up above, hit the thumbs up down below. Subscribe if you're an audio only guy. You can get us on Instagram at Sarcasm Speaks Pod. Twitter is Sarcasm_speaks. Facebook is Sarcasm Speaks. Check out the show notes, support the sponsors, support us. And until next time, good night, everybody.